Welcome. In this recording, we will walk through the process for developing an Annual Review IEP in ECATS. Let's begin by choosing the student for whom the IEP will be written. Now navigate to the EC Process tab and select IEP. The first tab is the meeting purpose. Complete each area with the appropriate information. Make a note of the IEP start and end dates for future reference in this process. Click Save and Continue. This will move you to the next section of the IEP without having to go back to the EC Process tab. The next tab is the student profile. Note that the area of eligibility shows here. Complete all 3 boxes with appropriate information. Click Save and Continue. The next tab is the Assessment Summary. Here, you will choose Add Assessments and select the Custom Assessment tab. The Custom Assessment tab allows you to put in the data portion of the present levels of performance for access later in the IEP writing process. Note that if you're using progress monitoring for a specific area, you may enter that in beside of progress monitoring. When you have completed this, click Save and Continue at the bottom. The next page is the source of relevant information. This is the page where you can bring in data from the assessment summary that relates to the progress monitoring of the previous IEP and that form the basis of the current present levels of performance for the new IEP. Click Add and Remove additional areas to select each area of need that the IEP team will discuss and determine whether or not specially designed instruction is required. This time, clicking Save and Continue will take you to a screen that allows you to reorder the areas if you choose to do so. Click Save and Continue again to move to the next section. You will now see a screen that identifies all the selected areas. From here, you will select the data by clicking on Add, Remove Existing Data associated with each area. At the new screen, click the plus sign beside Add Assessments to pull in appropriate data previously entered in the Assessment Summary tab. You will repeat this process for each area of relevant data selected. After you save and continue for the last area, you are now ready for the present levels of performance. Here, you are documenting the student's strengths and needs based on the data entered in the previous section for each of the selected areas. Below this is the additional information box. Both boxes must be addressed. Please note the description of how the student's disability impacts their involvement and progress in the general curriculum is now completed once for all areas of need. This may be a good time to use the Show Section feature to see how the information put into the database is documented on the form. In the Source of Relevant Information section of the form, data associated with the source will be printed. This error is being repaired in the system. After using the Show Section feature, simply return to the EC Process tab and select IEP again. We are now to the special factors. For the first question, is the student an English learner? The yes/no box is grayed out because PowerSchool is the authoritative source for this information. If there is additional information available to the IEP team, it can be documented in the text box in this section. The next question, does the student have any special communication needs, will be answered based upon what the student's needs. If you select yes, you must indicate where these needs will be addressed in the IEP. Check only those areas that apply, but you may check more than one area. The following two questions will be documented similarly to the example provided in number 2. For the question, does the student have a documented hearing loss? A selection of yes will prompt the user to complete the communication plan worksheet. When completed, this worksheet will print with the student's IEP. Further information on completing the communication plan worksheet will be available in a supplementary tip sheet. The next 4 questions all have similar input fields: yes, no, and additional information. These fields will be answered based on the student's unique needs. Are there additional parent concerns? If the answer is yes, an information box appears prompting you to return to the beginning of the IEP process to record the parent's concerns. The Supports for Academic, Functional, Personal Changes or Circumstances, if applicable, section provides you an opportunity to record any special information that may not otherwise have a place to be documented on the IEP. Finally, the Area in Need of SDI section is based on the areas selected on the Areas Assessment tab under the Source of Relevant Info section. This provides you the opportunity to input the IEP team's decision regarding whether or not an area requires SDI. We will select yes and click Save and Continue. The next section is Secondary Transition. At the beginning of this section, a warning message will appear. It includes the age of the student at the time the IEP is being developed. Remember, if the student will be turning 14 or 16 during the life of this IEP, certain secondary transition information must be completed. If the student does not meet these age requirements, do not complete this section. Scroll all the way to the bottom and click Save and Continue. If the student does meet these age requirements, complete the areas on this screen and click Save and Continue. More information on completing the secondary transition plan will be available in the supplementary tip sheet. At this point, we are ready for the annual goals. This screen lists all the areas in need of SDI, or in other words, the areas you said yes to for needing SDI. Click on Add Delete Goals to input the annual goals for this student. The present levels you entered previously are shown here for your reference. Click Add Goals and type in your goals. Once annual goals are entered, click on Goal Details/Objectives. Here is your opportunity to indicate if this annual goal is related to transition goals, if assistive technology is required, how progress towards this goal will be measured, and the mastery criteria. The mastery criteria is the number alone of how the goal will be measured. For example, if the annual goal states 80% accuracy, then enter 80 into this box. If the annual goal states 150 correct words per minute, enter 150 in this box. If the goal's measurement is 3 out of 5 trials, this is an either-or condition with the assumption that it be completed correctly. For this, you may want to enter 100 in the mastery criteria box so that when it is graphed, you will look for 3 times that meet the 100% criteria out of 5 trials. At the bottom of this screen, you may enter short-term objectives or benchmarks. You'll click Add Objectives if you choose to do so. This section is required for all students participating in the extended content curriculum. However, it can be used for any student. If objectives are used, you must enter at least 2. This is because of the nature of objectives being sub-steps taken to reach the annual goal. Also, please remember that even if objectives are included in the IEP, the annual goal must be measurable without the objectives. Click Save and Continue. We are now ready to designate service delivery. To the far right of the screen, click Add Special Education Services. The screen that appears allows you to enter the areas in which services will be rendered. Click Save and Continue. Here is where you will need the start and end date of the IEP that you used at the beginning of this process. You will be able to enter the amount of time, the frequency, duration, and location of the services. There may be times when some part of the student's services will change during the life of the IEP, and this is where you can document when a given service will begin and end. You will repeat this process for any related services that are applicable. Scroll down to the additional service information to complete all requested information. If the student is completely removed from the traditional school setting, it must be addressed here as it was in the service delivery. If transportation is required, you will make the appropriate selection and describe the service. Complete the last 3 statements as appropriate. Please note, the statement for justification of the least restrictive environment must address why the student cannot receive the service with their non-disabled peers for any and all times they are removed. This includes academic time, related service time, and non-academic time. When we click Save and Continue, we move to the page that allows us to document goal integration and supplemental aids. If you do not need anything here, simply click Save and Continue. The next section is for accommodations. Go to the right side of the screen to document accommodations for classroom activities, district assessments, and state tests. Select the appropriate activity and designate the student's participation level. Click Save and Continue. The next screen allows you to select the appropriate accommodations needed. For classroom activities, if the accommodation you need is not listed, choose Other from the list, and in the Custom Accommodations tab, describe the accommodation. On this screen, I'll let her finish doing that, sorry. On this screen, you will also choose the location of where those accommodations will take place. Once you select an accommodation, it will populate to all selected areas in need of accommodations. Use the Edit button to the right to change those things to make the accommodations appropriate to the appropriate areas. This two-step process is to ensure that accommodations are being used routinely across settings. It's a lot to do in accommodations, isn't it? When you are ready, be sure to address the student's participation in alternate assessment. At the bottom of this screen, you may add implementation specifics. Since specifications are required for some areas, but not all, you will not be prompted to add these. Click Save and Continue when you are ready. We are in the home stretch with extended school year determination. You only need to click the top button if you would like for the ESY worksheet to print with the IEP. Otherwise, you may leave it unmarked. Answer the 3 statements in the ESY eligibility determination section of this screen. For ESY eligibility and services, you will select the team's decision from the drop-down menu. If the determination is either yes or no, the determination date will be the date of the meeting. If the team selects eligibility cannot be determined at this time, the determination date may be a future date that the team will reconvene to make the determination. For students who will not receive ESY, scroll to the bottom, click Save and Continue, then click Save and Continue on the next screen as well. More information on completing this section for students who will receive ESY services will be provided in a supplementary tip sheet. Congratulations! You are now ready to create your IEP. Enter the date the IEP will be sent to the parent, guardian, or age of majority student. Use the drop-down options to select the correct IEP team. If a member of the team has been excused, you must have already received permission from the parent, guardian, or student to do so. Select the appropriate parents to participate and any other team members. The text box below is for you to describe the participation of other team members and/or the excusal of any team member. At the bottom, you may choose to display any errors in the IEP that need to be corrected. You may also simply create your draft IEP. The system will allow draft IEPs to be created with errors, but it will not allow a document with errors to be finalized. We hope that you have found this walkthrough of an annual review IEP helpful. It is our goal that you become comfortable with the new system and find it to be very beneficial in completing required paperwork. Thank you for all you do for the students in your care.